Hello and welcome to the incredibly influential and highly successful podcast. My name is Kael. I'm incredibly influential.
And my name is Maxwell, and I'm highly successful.
Today is Sunday, April 14th, as we are recording this. Sorry this one's out so late. The last few have kind of been out a little late. Just
You
because
may be sorry. I'm not sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry because I love and respect and care about our audience.
Kale is sorry, everyone.
I am because we put out we've recorded like 3 times in the last week, right? We're a little exhausted.
Yeah, you don't think people have enough to listen to?
No, never. It's our 100th episode. We can ball out a little bit, and I have to put out an atop the table for tomorrow at 8 a.m. That's
Good luck.
awesome. That's all.
Good luck.
Sorry, 9 a.m. Eastern for all you Eastern heads. It's 8 a.m. for me.
Yeah, but the only person who has to worry about that is Kale.
Yeah, yeah. Don't fucking remind me. Do not remind me. But yeah, we're here. We're vibing. We're just we out here. Um, yeah. I still haven't watched the Fallout TV show. I said I was gonna, but I have not done shit this weekend, man. Um, I was like dreading my Super Mega Baseball 3 game, and then I just like lost it on Saturday night and sort of lost the whole season too. So I've just not had any real motivation this week or this weekend to like go and watch anything. Um, so yeah, that was my weekend. What about you? Also, I think you muted yourself. He pushed the mute button. Oh, there it
I
is.
hello. I
Yeah,
love how
you.
you waited to finish your thought before considering how my mic was muted.
I thought you knew that you pressed it. I thought you were just like sneezing or something.
All right. Well, too bad your baseball didn't work out. We want to move on to you were going to ask me what I did on my weekend.
But yeah, since I didn't do diddly shit this weekend,
Great.
please tell me what you did. I'm sure it was so much more fucking interesting than what I did. It
Yeah.
was so boring.
Well, for one, I managed to watch Fallout, but since you haven't seen it, we will not talk about it. The other
Give a
things,
spoiler free review. Give a spoiler free review.
it's got something for everyone who's a fan, and if you don't, it does a good job at. Uh, it's very Fallout. It's
I
great.
I heard it carried the tone. How was the so you're a bit of an old head. I'm a bit of an old head when it comes to music.
It's
How
the
were
same
the
music.
how were the needle drops?
If you
Were
know the
they
music from the game, it's the music in the game and the show.
well? How did they use it? How were the needle drops specifically?
Uh, Fitting.
Fitting. Okay. Uh,
Yes.
anything good like the like
Well,
my favorite needle drops
I
in recent times.
I like all the music that's in the show. Let's move on to what else I did this weekend. How about that?
Oh, okay. I thought that was what you were excited to talk about. Tell me. Tell me. This sounds
No.
very interesting.
Well, there was a few panels at my school over this weekend.
Very cool.
Yes, there was a whole like weekend panel for the campus. It was
Hmm.
it's the Institute for Genocide and Mass Atrocity Prevention, I believe. They have their own acronym, but it's something like that.
Hmm.
Yes, I got it right. Okay. Anyway, they had a panel, lots of panels. I couldn't get to all of them, but I went to a few, and they kind of are really good at having some sort of introduction, which is accessible to all students about, mm, you know, various social issues that are going on. So it's nice to have kind of that space for education and teaching and learning that's just around and offered. So I took it upon myself to go to some of those. Among my favorites was a panel about this advocate who's speaking up for LGBTQ plus rights in Uganda. Because it turns out it was very recently made punishable by death to engage in uh, any like to engage in homosexual activity in the country.
Did they
So it's very serious. Not to mention other forms of limiting of uh, protesting or murdering l- advocates by the government. So
yeah.
it was all very uh, new stuff to learn about, and it's just something that uh, should help in kind of thinking about those issues and like I would say the role of the United States even in that because we are big funders of their military, which is one of the largest perpetrators of mm, forms of torture directed towards us people suspected of being gay. So
Yeah.
that was one panel I went to, and then there was another one that was about. hmm, I mean, I went to one that was about displacement and reconstructions as not uh, as as being something that is not being fully respectful of the cultures it's trying to restore or the people who belong to those cultures, and that it's mostly affecting refugees. Do you know how many refugees we have in the world right now?
I would
Give
say
me.
less than a billion,
Okay.
probably.
Okay. So less than 1/7 of the country.
That's all of them?
You're gonna act like that's a small metric?
1/7 of America?
No, it's more than that.
How much is it? I said what less than a billion.
Yeah, you did,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is close. Er,
yeah. I mean, uh, I don't know. I feel like China's the most populous country. I reckon about all of the refugees there would either be Tibetan or Uyghurs.
well, give me a number. Give me a
I'm
number. How
trying to do
many?
my math. I'm doing my math. I'm thinking. I don't know. I don't think it could be higher than 750 million.
You're correct, but think about that. That's such a high number to presume are refugees in the world.
I mean,
Like
that's just.
people, people who are removed from their country, their country's identity, their homes.
Are those people applying for asylum status? Is that every single person who's applying for an asylum status?
Well, it's an interesting thing that um, you know we like to separate people based on whether they can seek asylum or whether they are refugees.
I mean, it's roughly the same thing. If you can't return home to your country, you
Yeah,
probably seek asylum somewhere else.
but even though we can say that they are comparable, we definitely give people who are eligible for asylum more freedoms than we give people who are refugees.
Well, yeah. The sad reality is if we uh, limit it to people who can seek asylum, or if we show preferential treatment to those people, then that makes the process run more smoothly, right? Like it's
Well, that's the question is like, how how much smoother is it that that is it being run by having this added policy?
I mean,
Is
it's
it
true.
is it is it benefiting the people seeking asylum more by having to like, and if you want to know what is the distinction, and it's one distinction, because in all other categories, people who are asylum seekers and refugees are both displaced from their countries, typically don't have homes and are, you know, so
Well, technically,
what is
technically,
what is the difference, right? The
te-
difference between an asylum seeker and a refugee is that an asylum seeker has proved that their life, their their whole life, like uh, is in is being threatened or in danger by returning to the country. So
well,
you have to prove that you would you would be like uh you know the danger posed against you from your country is to the extreme that your life is at risk, that you get asylum status. But that is the
well,
but,
according to the OECD,
but that's also
technically,
huge, isn't that? Don't you think, like, you know, that is such a profound thing, that someone can be, threatened, can have their life threatened, and that makes them the person seeking asylum. And do you wonder what is the difference that, someone seeking asylum, like how would the treatment of someone seeking an asylum be different than a refugee, when the sole difference is that the asylum seeker was able to prove that their life is being threatened or under threat
so
with the
technically you have
prospect of
that
returning to their
backwards.
country.
You have that backwards. Um, so according to the OECD, it's actually asylum seekers submit the request for asylum, but haven't completed it yet. Um, Refugees are those who have completed it. So a
I
refugee,
hold on. That so you're saying that I don't know how that would fully track though,
I'm not
because
saying it. Technically, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development is saying it. Uh,
but but who are the people getting more privileges based on their status, right?
Refugees,
And what
because they've completed the process.
but like, also another question, what is the difference in, their privileges? How is
Refugees,
giving someone different privileges because their life was being threatened at the, you know uh, at the possibility of returning to their home country? How is that, like, being treated differently than a person who is also seeking to live in another country because their home and livelihood prove to be unsustainable, that they would be willing to travel from their home thousands of miles to get to the border of another country?
so uh, 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 the refugees are accessible to government services. They can do business, work, and study, and they can travel. Usually, asylum seekers can't do that. Um, if but again, if an asylum seeker succeeds, they become a refugee.
I don't I don't really I don't know, because you know refugees are not citizens. So you talk about, like, these being defining traits of someone who has earned a status, but it doesn't. match the privileges you describe, which would be for someone who has closer to full citizenship
No,
in the
we
country.
give government services to refugees even if they aren't citizens. If somebody succeeds in the asylum procedure, they get government funding for a certain amount of months. They get like all sorts of things, and they can stay, and they can eventually apply for citizenship.
You know what's interesting to think about is the right to work in this country is not something uh, well, it's under high scrutiny. We have a cultural uh, disapproval towards, like we create a lot of restrictions to the access of work for people who are even already like legal residents of this country, face their own obstacles in getting a permit to work, which is something to
Yeah,
think about
I mean
because
it's
because imagine how much harder it is when you're also dealing with you know grappling with retaining your ability to make new to newly establish yourself in a country that's foreign to you, and to have like your livelihood be threatened as something that's illegal.
I mean, but again, think about it.
Wait,
Like
wait, 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 wait. I I don't know if like other
no,
than
I
this
understand.
quote work, you know, like imagine like we couldn't do this. It's a stupid stretch of a comparison, but it's like we couldn't do this because even though we're able to like live here, we wouldn't be allowed by our country
To
to
establish a business. Yeah, I get it.
work.
Yeah. Um, but like the flip side, there are reasons why we have those. Not
Yeah, but
all of those are
but
racist.
but I'm
I
I
feel
didn't.
like there's some implication that it's like all nationalist or racist or something like that. But we have those in place for good reasons. Like they didn't just come out of the fucking sky. We came up with the idea of like, you know, not letting undocumented people or
But
like people
what's
without a visa work.
what's important is that even though we created them, right? And I use we loosely in that, but like as like people created them, people could still create them with a bias that is worked into what they created, and uh, because of how it is, it like disseminates into how it's acted on or how it's practiced.
You're right. We should be arresting more Canadians for violating that uh, set of things. You know, a lot of people, most illegal immigration uh, is not from the border. I don't know if that's changed recently, but I doubt it. But it comes by plane. Is people overstaying their visas, right? So yeah, there's a lot of that. But
But
you know,
it makes you think too that like the you know our our it's something I think we should just like drive home that point. It's like if we're worried about this like overstepping of a policy, right? It's it's the largest violator of that policy has nothing to do with the physical border of our country.
no, and that's something we need to understand. But also at the same time, there have been more border crossings now than in like many, many, many recent years, and it is overloading a lot of places, right? And like
Do you wonder about how it's overloaded?
because Texas ships them off to other cities and states that can't afford them.
I think it's well. I think you're kind of speaking to it, which is we don't have a system that you know works with this. Uh, it's like it's globalization. You know, people travel to other countries for seeking greater opportunity and exchange their abilities and work for benefiting their own lives.
Yeah, that's the visa system. You get and just to show how easy it is to get a fucking visa for being talented, the ugliest first lady we've had in I would say 20 years since Nancy Reagan, the blowjob queen, was let into this country because she was talented as a model. Some people thought Melania was hot enough that she should get a visa to come here. So I think that's pretty funny. Like, have you seen Melania? She's fucking hideous. So if she can get in for being talented, anyone can get in for being talented. You could
So
juggle halfway decently
so
and get
you're
into this country.
you're comparing the experience of millions of people to former First Lady of the United States. Am I getting that
She
right?
got in long before she was the first lady. Let's be real here. Let's make it. Let's not take me too far out of context here. She got in back in the what was it, the late '80s? So long
Okay,
before she met Donald.
but it's still one to millions.
Plenty of untalented people come here on visas for being talented. And there's other ways to get a visa, but the
Yeah, you could
the
marry Donald Trump.
no,
That's
she married him after she came here.
maybe
That's the shitty part.
maybe oh
She didn't even
so
have an anchor baby. She didn't
so
even have Baron yet.
she got the visa beforehand.
Yeah, she met him here.
Okay.
She got the visa because somebody thought she was hot enough. And that's the part that I'm talking about. She's ugly. And if she wants to come at me for body shaming her and for bullying her, I'm going to quote her own jacket. I don't really care. Do you? Fucking owned. Can I get some bars for that? Can you just say bars real quick, Maxwell?
I don't,
Can I just get a real quick bars on that? Just real quick.
uh
Just real quick. Bars! You know, just like that.
just like that.
Just like that. Just bars! You know?
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just say no,
No,
I'm asking you to do it.
I think you landed it.
No, I don't want to toot my own horn. I don't want to toot my own horn.
But at the end of the day it's tooted, right?
No, no. This is not a solo. This is a duet, okay? So hit me with that bars, because that was bars. Let's be real here.
I mean, you just were like she got in to this country. She got a visa because the officer responsible thought she was pretty enough.
Mm-hmm.
But you say she's ugly.
Mm-hmm. And I said if she wants to come at me for bullying or body shaming her, I said, and I quote, I don't really care. Do you? It's a reference. Do you remember that?
I just like I don't like I don't know. I feel like copying her fails to see like it's
Well,
it's
no,
kind of
I'm
what
not
she does.
copying her.
It's kind of what she did, you know? She
I'm
did
not
that
copying
too.
her because I didn't steal any of Michelle Obama's quotes in a speech.
Oh, so because you're not stealing from a certain person, the concept is applied differently.
Well, I'm
Because
not. I quoted.
it's
I
the same
cited her.
action.
A. I
It's
cited the source. B. Uh, I
fair.
uh, yeah. So that's point number one. She plagiarized Michelle Obama. I cited the source. And B. I'm not quoting her because she said something profound. I'm quoting her because she's a fucking retarded bitch from a fake country. Where the fuck is Slovenia even anyway? I know where they say it is. It's a paper country. You ever heard of paper towns, Maxwell? You ever heard of paper towns? You know what those
Like
are?
like the movie.
Do you know what the phrase that the movie is named after is from? Do you know what that is?
I guess movies that or towns that don't hold a lot of weight.
No. So back in the day, um, uh, cartographers, map makers, before GPS, right? And I think maybe even after GPS. I'm not sure when they stopped or when it became illegal, but um, they would put fake towns on their maps as a form of copyright trap, right? So that way, if somebody was copying their map instead of like actually going and like doing their own map making, they would look for the paper towns on the map, and if they found them, they would sue them, and they would win because it's a copyright trap. Um, there was a Vsauce made a video about uh, a different copyright trap. There was a misspelling in the Webster's, I believe, dictionary. Um, it was like capital D space or space lowercase d means density, but they forgot spaces in between, so they just wrote the word dord, like DORD, and they said that that's an abbreviation for density. And they caught someone who used that, right? And they sued them, and they said, hey, that's an obvious misspelling, and they have it in their dictionary. We should sue them because copyright trap. And then the judges said, you can't copyright a fact. So paper towns no longer exist on maps. So
I see.
but what I'm saying is Slovenia is a fucking paper country because when was the last time they did anything? Right? Just like Arkansas is a paper state. Do you know anyone from Arkansas?
I
Have you
mean,
been to Arkansas?
we
Have you
can we
seen it
can
from space?
we can be mad at like how little it does, but at the end of the day, we still lose probably with how much our own states pay to hold up the financial well-being of the state.
Now here's the thing I don't understand. Here's the thing
What's
I don't
that?
understand.
What's that?
So, um back when Trump was president, um you know, he would always say, "Hey, everyone in NATO needs to get their spending up to 2% of GDP on their defense, or we're cutting our funding." Or I think he said we were leaving NATO, and uh, all the liberals were like, "No, you can't do it. You can't do it, Trump. You can't do it." But all the liberal states say we should cut off all the funding to the southern states and see how long they last. And like, here's what I think: why don't we do both? Why don't we do both? I hate freeloaders. I hate them. Work for your fucking bullshit, right? I that's rich for me to say, but I keep a 3.45 GPA. So,
You're a freeload hater.
I am a freeload hater, but at least I'm working. At least I'm doing this. I do
I,
atop the table.
it's like I don't know. It's such a weird. It's a weird
I'm a player hater. I am
like what a weird word to use.
what, freeloaders?
Yeah, freeloader.
But they are. They're
Well,
parasites. Every
you're referring to people,
I'm
right?
referring to states, but yes.
Okay, but like at the end of the day, you're referring to like people,
Yes.
and um, who are these people that you describe as freeloaders? They're people who are less educated.
Mhm.
They are they have they're probably poorer than you are.
Yep. They are.
Okay. Um, they can come from a range of different races and genders
Mhm.
than yours.
Mhm.
They can also, um, I mean, what else? They they can all, I feel like those things are factual, but then when you look at that and you compare that to like what separates you and that person and how those like their how much money they have, and these other defining features can affect their whole lives differently than yours, and they essentially need more support because they they are more exposed to types and variety, like forms of oppression that are, socially constructed in this country.
Most of those people are white. Most of these southern states are white. They're white people.
Okay.
They're not oppressed. They're poor, but they're not oppressed.
But like I I think we should look at social class as another part of a person's identity, right?
They are making
Like it
majority.
it
Uh,
comes
uh,
it affects their lives that they're poor because they can't afford the kinds of education that we're accessing because
I don't think
our
I need
our
education to
education.
be smarter than them.
Well,
At the end of the
that was a
day,
that was quite a statement. You really like talked into your own ass there.
at the end of the day, the majority of IQ, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The studies show the majority of IQ, the majority, if not a super majority, is heritable, not based on class
and you,
or
and you believe
race.
this. You believe
The
intelligence is
studies show
heritable.
that. The studies show that. I'm a psych major. This is what I study.
You you believe it.
They've controlled for the variables. They do twin studies. They do studies on twins separated at birth.
You believe that people can can vary in intelligence based on what?
Those who are more closely related, no matter
Based
what their
no
background,
no 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 based on what? How do you define people who inherit like whatever it is that makes them smarter than other people?
genes.
What difference in genes? Please be more specific.
We're still. So, have you ever? I think we talked about this before. You know how there are
Because
like some
how
scientific
how
things.
are we made differently? Like what? Oh, because we're both what seriously, what is the difference? Like, okay, you're implying this. So that means between you and me, we have different capacities of intelligence because we were born to different parents. That's what you're implying.
They can be like similar, yeah, but they're the defining
But
trait.
what would make me smarter or dumber than you are based on how I was born?
How your genes play out. Like again, it's a developing study. We don't know what genes they are, or if we do, we're not talking about them because this is like the gay gene,
But
right? This is
if you're not certain about this, then why do you make it a defining part of your claims of
we
like
aren't certain
how you
which
understand
specific gene it is. We know that it is genetic.
but you believe that there is a difference in people's intelligence based on genetics.
Yes, that's what
You
the science has shown.
I just I
I've shown
I
you the
I
studies.
I need more than like because my my education experience at college was learning about how historically people created these studies, okay? Scientists are people. People make the studies. They conduct them, but they also define the results.
It's
It's
not
it's not
just
a,
the one study
no,
though.
but you're right. It's multiple studies where
Thousands.
people repeatedly claim that there is a difference between people and they chalk it up to genetics and they continually cling on to genetics as a as a tool for argument against uh you know the belief that everyone has the equal capacity to, I guess, be intelligent. Or like that's the other thing. It's like, what does it mean that you're less intelligent? What, how does that like
So
what
I'm really glad
like
you asked. Actually, I'm really
but
glad you asked
but
because this is
you
exactly what
s-
I'm learning about in class.
you say this like people, so people make, so people might be prone to making more mistakes. But how does saying that someone who has you know less attain like the ability to like conceptualize or learn or grasp new
Hmm.
skills
Critical thinking, yeah.
can come slower to another person than someone else? Okay.
Well,
but
it's
but but now you're trying to divide people based on that. you know why are you trying to like pinhole people on it? Just it's so it's it's really interesting to think about, because you're really trying to create division between people by saying
the
this.
numbers say it. I don't know what to tell you. They've done twin studies. I don't know
You
what to
keep
tell you.
you
The
keep bringing it
numbers.
back. Do you want me to bring up like my own uh what I've read? Because it's a pattern. You mention it. You use it in your own argument that there's a pattern of researchers who put out studies that say that there is a difference between people's intelligences, and that it's because of something you can't. It's it's just genetics. They just say genetics, but
Yeah,
it's not. But that's not an argument. It's not. It just it just it serves as a umbrella term to
but like
look to look at people differently and judge them differently and less human, because you don't see them as fitting what you perceive as an intelligent being. But how can you perceive genetics in
who
this
is
argument?
who would you vote for president? Would you
No-
vote if there were two candidates and one was smarter than the other? Who would you vote
Please,
for president? Answer.
but see, I don't. Oh, it's so frustrating that
If
you just
all you
say
knew
you
was
just
their
say
IQ
that.
tests, if all you knew was their IQ tests, and one of them was, let's say 2 standard deviations higher, let's say
It
130,
doesn't
yeah,
matter.
130.
It doesn't matter, because you could be the smartest person in the world and still be a monster.
If that was all you had to go on,
It would still not be enough.
gun to your head,
It's
you
still not
have to
enough.
choose one, pick one.
It doesn't matter who I choose.
It does matter who you choose. There are very obvious signs
The
that
only
certain
difference
people
the
should
only
have
difference
power.
you're creating is based on who you think is a smarter person than the other person, based on a test that is made by people.
I mean, what would you rather there be? That any test of intelligence is going to be judged by people. We should at least have.
I want you to accept that intelligence defined by people has a bias.
It may have a slight bias, but we have been continually honing and training this test to be less biased for 100 years. We've been using this test for 100 years.
I
And
can hear you
using
slamming the
this
table.
test, oh, I could slam it a lot louder. There you go. That's me slamming the table. That's what I do every time I lose those fucking baseball games. But I told you I broke one of those expensive lightning chargers with the USB-C thing, right? I told you I
Whose
broke one
fault?
of those.
Whose fault is that?
It was mine. I didn't pay attention to where the cord was. I grabbed my salt shaker and I wanted to slam it on my desk. And I didn't realize where my cord was, and I cut it clean in half.
Gamer
Moy,
rage.
hey man, it's not just gamer rage; it's baseball rage. But the uh, so actually, Maxwell, so we do know
Actually,
we have the math. There's an equation to determine how much I'm trying to explain this in like normal person terms because I hate the name of this variable. But there's a
oh,
term.
maybe it's too smart for us. Maybe that's what it is.
No, I
And
think it's
so,
just very
yeah,
long-winded.
we should just give up now.
It's called the coefficient of determination. That's the like the short name. But basically what it measures is how much the variability in data comes from the treatment effect, right? So it determines how much of the change comes from you fucking with the uh, independent variable, right? So it's a complicated. It's not like a complicated formula, but it's a lot of things. But you
So
do the math, and it gives you a number, and it says exactly how much percent the uh, treatment effect had on uh, the dependent variable. So they've used this math.
yeah, you're talking about reliability, right?
Uh, it's a measure of effect size, so not necessarily reliability. Um, it's just like uh, it's similar but not quite the same. But um, they've used that number, and they used to get they did twin studies of adult individuals many years ago. These were the early ones, um, and they got their measures of effect size between 57 and 73%, which is a very high effect size. Like, I can tell you the exact thresholds for what a significant effect size is.
Um,
It's a lot,
I'm yeah.
but they've gotten
Since
higher
since we're
recently.
since we're on a platform and we are talking about this, and if people are more interested in it, because I don't have the resource on me, but I had the privilege of reading it. But it's a book called Medical Apartheid, and it is I'll look up who it's by. It's by a woman named Harriet A. Washington, and um, this person like documents and runs through uh, a history of the United States repeatedly creating studies and using not only this, but using studies to be the source of evidence to enact policies that um, I would I would say are racially biased,
The
very
scientific
racially biased.
consensus
But
actually says that genetics doesn't explain
but
average
this happened.
differences
This
in
happened in the
IQ
country.
test performances between racial groups, though. So, yes, that's true. But the modern scientific consensus is that the genetic component doesn't explain the differences in IQ test performance between racial groups. And that makes sense because if you actually look at the human genome, the genes that uh, cause, the phenotypical traits that we consider race, those are a very small group of genes, and it's a common, cliche, but it is true that people of different races, quite literally, have more in common with people of other races than they do with people of their own race, right? Like someone comparing like two black people, they can be wildly different, but a black person and a white person could be very similar other than those genes that change their skin color or like
uh,
certain different things. Like the the difference in genetics between a black person and a white person is very small. So that the scientific consensus that genetics doesn't explain like the
uh,
differences between racial groups makes sense.
okay, so you're using this study
It's
as
not one
as
study, it's multiple studies.
okay,
It's
okay, but you're using this as your as as your argument, right?
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
saying
okay, okay. So you gave me the point that like they couldn't find something, in their findings. That's what they say in their findings. Is that they
No,
so
I'm saying
s-
we haven't found
so
the specific gene, or it's
we
roughly
haven't
a group
found
of
it.
genes.
So we haven't found it.
Okay, we don't know the specific genes that cause
But
cancer
we
or Lou
haven't
Gehrig's.
but Kale, we haven't found it. So we can't act like we have.
Yes,
That
we
would be
can.
No, we can't because that would be lying to people.
What is a twin study, Maxwell?
What is lying?
What is a twin
what
study?
what is this? No, please, Kale, work with me here. Please
If
engage
two
with me.
human beings are genetically identical and we can pinpoint that the difference in their IQ is
Please,
based on
I just
heritability.
I just want to use what you used to talk about this.
I'm
You
saying we don't know
you
the
brought up this
specific gene
study.
or genes.
So what would the null theory be?
The null hypothesis.
Please,
Oh my
please.
god, actually. Oh fuck. Oh fuck.
Because
You're turning me on right now. You're
because the
genuinely turning me on right now.
because let me tell you, the null is your argument.
Can we go to the ad break so I can get my notes, please? This is genuinely turning me on right now. Can we go to the ad
Please,
break, please?
this is making me very uncomfortable. You
I've-
saying that.
This is like genuinely what I've been studying for the past like 4 years and 4 months of my life.
So
This is what I've been studying for.
So you have dedicated yourself to proving that people have inherited intelligence.
No, I just meant statistics and psychology in general. But I have done this study. I've seen these studies and I understand them quite well. But we'll go to the ad break. I will go get my notes so that way I can tell you exactly what the null hypothesis is because I know exactly what kind of t-test they used as well. And that makes me feel so fucking cool right now because I know exactly what kind of shit they were doing to get these results. And that, oh my god. Oh fuck. That's hot. That's genuinely really hot. Okay, I need to go. Ad break. This episode is sponsored by Liquid IV, the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. We've been partnering with them all summer, and I've been using it to beat the heat through some of these particularly nasty heat waves. While it was scorching hot outside, I was staying cool and refreshed with Liquid IV and their 12 delicious flavors.
One stick of liquid IV in 16 ounces of water hydrates you twice as fast and far more efficiently than water alone, and it also contains 5 essential vitamins and 3 times the electrolytes of leading sports drinks, without any GMOs, gluten, dairy, or soy. Liquid IV is also committed to equitable access to clean water worldwide, partnering with leading organizations to fund and foster innovative solutions with communities that protect both their water and their futures, and donating 39 million servings in 50 plus countries around the world.
Real people, real flavor, real hydrating. Get 20% off when you go to liquidiv.com and use code IIHS podcast, all one word, at checkout. That's 20% off anything you order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code IIHS podcast, again, all one word, at liquidiv.com. Thank you again to Liquid IV for partnering with us. This podcast is sponsored by Amanda Redwine, your no-nonsense talk therapist and parent coach. Serving individuals and couples in both Illinois and Florida for counseling/therapy, as well as worldwide for parent coaching. Amanda's specialty is working with teens and young adults, as well as their family systems. Amanda has extensive experience working with youth who identify on the LGBTQIA+ spectrum. She has also done couples work based on a foundation of the Gottman method. She brings a light, no-nonsense approach to treatment that is approachable and empathetic. She is unflappable and makes her clients comfortable from the very beginning. Find out more at www.amandaredwine.com. That's AMANDAREDWINE.com. Thank you again for sponsoring this episode, and back to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I've got my notes. Let's go.
So proud of you.
So what they did was they would do an independent t-test, right? They would they take their independent t-test, they measure uh, one twin. So there's two groups, right? This is not an experiment, so we cannot say for sure that one thing causes the other because we cannot make people twins. Like that's just not possible.
This argument currently is against your argument.
I'm saying this is a quasi experiment, which is we can
But
determine
is
the
it for
correlation from it.
but is it for or against?
I'm saying that in science we cannot say for sure that one thing is caused by another. We
Okay, but
literally
like what does that mean? Like you don't just give the results, you also give like another section that's
Oh,
like
this is just a preface. This is just a preface for everyone who's listening that
okay.
science cannot prove anything. But what they did was they took two groups, adult twins, because these were done on adult twins, and
Do you want to like elaborate on what do we mean when we say science doesn't prove anything?
you cannot definitively prove anything with science because a perfect correlation is impossible uh,
So
with a small
so
sample size or
which
with a large
leads
sample size.
to the approach of studies to always be to prove that something that you can believe is not real.
We can,
It's about like disproving like statements, and that's how we create an argument for science.
and we can
It's
say
it's by
things are.
it's by proving that something that we can, you know, conject or speculate on or like, you know, say, but
That's just
isn't proven is disproven.
the problem is that's just not a thing we could do a normal experiment on. Like just because like you just couldn't, right? Because there's three kinds of studies. There's experiments, which are completely random sampling and assignment into groups, either a control group or a treatment group, and you take data, blah 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 blah. That you can determine causation. Well, technically you can't even determine causation from that, but you can say, like, you know, the treatment size had this effect on it rather than these two effects are correlated. This is a correlational study. Well, technically it's not, but it is a
Technically it isn't
study that
because
determines correlation.
it's not it's not possible because you just said that like what? You said the exact correlation is not possible. Isn't that what you
Yes,
said? Okay.
but there are still like large correlation. You can still find large correlation and very tight lines of best fit. Like things can be strongly correlated. Technically, all right. Here's proof of this, right? So if I had a group of people and I asked them, hey, tell me your foot pain scale of 1 to 10, and they said, okay, 0, 0, 0, blah 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 blah, right? And then I shot them all in the foot one by one, and then I asked them afterwards, hey, how's your foot feeling? And they gave me a different number. You still can't say that the difference comes from me shooting you in the foot definitively. It's just not possible. Because some people, their foot might have just done that. Their foot might have just become in pain, right? You cannot say definitively that the increase in foot pain came from me shooting you in the foot. But it's strongly, strongly correlated, right? So that's sort of the point. But what they did in these studies was they had two groups. They had monozygotic or identical twins. So same, like genetically the same.
Okay, but
Dylan and Cole
this is still a study related only to twins.
they compared them to non-twins, of course. So they took the difference. They gave everyone an IQ test.
So who's the control here?
Non-twins. Like I assume the way they did it. The way I would do this is you've got two groups and they're two pairs. Like there's pairs in each group, right? There's the pairs of twins and then pairs of random people. And the random people are just randomly assigned, right? So it's almost an experiment, but not quite, because you can't like randomly assign people to be twins, because you just can't do that. So, but you know, you got like Dylan and Cole Sprouse, genetically identical human beings, right?
Can
And
we
they've got
even say that? Can we say that like so we say that twins are genetically identical?
it's
That's
very difficult to make twins not genetically identical.
I'm just trying to determine that like that is like an accepted statement before the study is conducted.
In order, like,
Because
yes, they are.
what that implies is that there it's impossible for there to be a difference created by genetics if it's pre-established that they're genetically the same.
Yeah, so what they did was they took the differences. They had them. No, shut up, shut up. They had the pairs of twins and the pairs of random people. They made them take IQ tests. They took the difference between the twins and the difference between the random people, and they compared them with each other. That's how
But
I
you
would run this study.
okay, okay, that's how you would run it, but that doesn't matter because that doesn't just because you feel a way about it doesn't mean that like oh the decision to use an IQ test to determine a person's genetics having an influence on their intelligence is a connected flow of thought for a study.
But that, like, that's what they did. They did. They
Yeah,
took.
do you see how ludicrous that is
No,
though?
it's how the fuck is it ludicrous? If you are measuring the difference in differences between twins and random people, you can find how much the difference is based on heritability.
I think it would just imply that like the the test might be flawed if it's like creating differences in people in that way.
How so? What do you mean?
Because we can't definitively say that IQ tests are a perfect reflection of a person's uh, genetics,
No,
intelligence.
no,
It's
they don't. They have nothing to do with genetics. I'm saying genetics determines how different of a score you'll be from your twin versus your sibling versus your parent versus a random person you don't know from Adam. Those who are more closely related will have smaller differences than those who are not more closely related. And by calculating the measure of effect size on this independent measures t-test,
but it's
you
so
can
like
determine.
it's also such a crazy like like it's like how do we define intelligence like
Using
because
the
it,
IQ test
your
scores.
your argument works when you don't believe education can increase a person's intelligence. Your logic is super sound when that is your core value.
Yes, what they found was even identical twins who were raised in separate circumstances
Okay,
still had
but
closer IQ
can
tests
we
than
get back
other
can we
people.
come back to that? Can we come back to that? I'm going to repeat it again because I think it bears repeating that you know you have this concept and theory, this mindset that your intelligence cannot be improved by the accumulation of more knowledge
That's not what I said.
or by not but it's by like education is effectively like learning more, right? It's it's the it's the process in which you are able to receive and um, you know perform or essentially like to to you know make decisions in your actions or etc, right?
Yes.
But it's all determined based on how much information you have already taken in.
What I'm saying is uh,
But
the evidence is showing that that is not the case.
I know that's what you're saying.
So
I know that's
I'm
what you're saying, but you also know that that goes directly against uh
common sense.
I'm not going to chalk it up to that. I'm going to chalk it up to what I would agree as a definition for intelligence.
If we are using the IQ test as a measure of intelligence, then
Yeah, that's a
IQ
big if.
tests
It's a
score
big if,
differences.
but
It's
that
it's
that
the
has
best
to.
measure. What other measure would you use? GPA?
I'm not trying to find one.
So if you can't come up with a reasonable alternative, then that's like the best one we've got. I agree it's not perfect, but if
It
we
doesn't excuse its use. Just because you want to use something because you don't have an option that's uh more reliable does not mean that the only option is good. It doesn't mean that at all. It
it's a
it
better
it
test than any other test.
in fact if you were to create a study about this, I think you would say that test doesn't work. And then you would have to prove that it works, right?
That would be the null hypothesis.
Right.
You would say the null hypothesis would be what are you trying to compare it to?
It
Uh,
is an effective way of measuring a person's intelligence.
what do you want the dependent variable to be? How are you going to measure intelligence if not by the IQ test? Is what I'm saying. Like, what variable would you like me to consider intelligence as opposed to the IQ test?
Well, that's the thing is that it's not something that is yet to have something that does that. We don't have that yet, okay? And like every single version that is created is made by people, right? But it's like continually improving. It hasn't been perfected.
Nothing has been perfected. The fucking heliocentric model developed by Galilei wasn't perfect,
Right. Good example.
but we know it's mostly correct,
But it
and there's no
but
better
just
model.
because of that, when we learned that there were more uh realistic ways of depicting the solar system, did we stay with Galileo's uh model? I would think that we improved upon the model.
Yeah, and they've been
And
improving on
we've
the
been
IQ
trying to
test for
get
100 years.
okay. I
What
get
I'm
it.
saying
I
right
get
now
it,
is,
okay?
yeah,
It is I get that like it is created as the way to measure intelligence, right?
yes.
That is how it is. That is how it's promoted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I think that like communally we haven't all like not even in like the higher tiers of like people don't agree upon this test as being a serviceable way to measure a person's intelligence.
I mean,
It's
I,
not
th-
universally agreed upon.
I mean, it's
Please,
not.
please, please, am I? Please tell me if I'm wrong.
I think a lot of opposition to the IQ test is not made in good faith. I think there's a lot of opposition
Okay,
to the IQ
okay,
test
but that
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 is
is
coming
not.
from
But
your
that is your opinion. That doesn't have like a backing of evidence or of some sort of source that's like this is not a good way or I
most of the opposition I've seen to it is because people are saying that it's that the genetics plays such a big factor in it, and people say that it causes like racial impacts in the uh between groups, right? Like there's that like certain groups will score lower on it than others, which the modern scientific consensus that does defend the IQ test, because that's what the modern scientific consensus feels, is that the IQ test is a a good enough depiction of intelligence because there's basically no other way to get it.
Well, forgive me for not, you know, buying
But
into
I feel like you're moving
something.
the goalposts.
Well, I'm not gonna wholeheartedly believe in something that the scientific community feels.
The evidence shows the majority of
But
studies done.
you just like, I don't know. I feel like you're going back on your words because you.
No, the majority of evidence shows that actually, would you say that the IQ test was worse 50 years ago, or 40 years ago, or 30 years ago?
I don't understand it well enough to to answer that.
But like, it probably used to be more biased, right? And like in the modern day, I think it's a fair assumption to say that the scientific community wants to reduce the bias in the IQ test. So you can generally say that it's been improving over the last few years, few decades, right? Would you agree that that's a reasonable assumption?
Well, I would feel like I would need to be presented information to agree.
Based on the general direction of science moving away from racial biases and
I
scientific
don't
racism.
I don't like yes, but I don't think that diminishes its existence.
That's true, but more to my point, as we've been doing more studies on newer versions of the IQ test, the heritability of IQ test scores has actually increased. So if it has been becoming less racially biased and less biased on education, then it is showing more genetic influence on IQ test scores. So
You know, it is interesting to think about because um to account for those differences, we have to also acknowledge that there is a difference that already is pre-established and exists.
yeah, but like the thing,
But
the effects
if
that
you
you brought up do
but
exist.
if you yeah, but I'm trying to I think I also want to point out that like if you don't, then your test will be inaccurate because you will fail to account for this thing that affects the country on a national level.
Yes, but what we
And it's
found,
generational as well, I might add. So like you make a case that something is genetic, but like it might also be affecting people for multiple generations too. Not specifically their intelligence, but you know, not their genetics is what I mean, but their intelligence can be affected because it affects their ability to access education, which is a way of improving upon your intelligence.
yes, but the point I was going to make is that education is a part of it. It is a part of it.
I think
Education is a
it's
part
the
of it.
part of it. I think it's the part of it. How else do
That's
you
that's the part that I'm saying. It's not.
but
From the
but
test that
that's
we've
such a crazy thing that like by
science is
by
crazy.
implying no, but by implying that you are you are actively like over you're ignoring what the world has come to accept as the understanding of intelligence.
That working harder in school and learning more in school makes you smarter. Yeah, it sucks. It's one of those things that's become hyper normalized, right? You know what hyper normalization is, right? When like something when you explain something to someone and you dumb it down and you dumb it down and you dumb it down to the point where it's no longer necessarily true. Where you leave out little
That
nuances to
doesn't
the
make
point where it
sense.
becomes it's like
How could you
um
dumb it down to make it false? I feel like the point of dumbing it down is to make the ability to understand it as if like that the way to understanding it becomes more efficient by, as you say, dumbing it down. It makes it easier for people to be smarter.
So it's have you ever seen that
Isn't that
the meme template where it's like
what?
soy jack on the left. It's an IQ curve, right? And you see there's like a soy jack on the left who says something dumb, and then there's a guy in the middle who says something that he thinks is smart, and there's someone on the right who agrees with the person on the left, but they're like smart Wojak, right? Does that make sense? Like there's dumb Wojak, cringe Wojak, wise Wojak. Do you know that meme?
Okay, you're
So
okay.
one of
What?
So basic. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an
What?
example of a hypernormalized thing, right? So people will say, George Washington was the first president. He wasn't, but then a little later on in your academic career, like you find out in middle school, you're like, did you know George Washington wasn't actually the first president? It was actually John Hancock because he was the president of the Continental Congress. But then you realize, wait,
Does that? But that just makes him president of the Continental Congress.
yeah,
That
exactly.
sounds like a different entity from the United States.
Well, and then there was a different president during the Articles of Confederation, and people say that, right? And people are
All
like,
right,
"See, there was a
so
different president." So George
so
Washington
it's
wasn't actually the first president of the United States, but he
so
was
what
the
you
first president under the Constitution. So he kind of
okay.
was.
All right, so your point is yes, but no, but actually yes.
Yeah, that's
So
what I'm saying.
no is like completely mitigated by saying, but in the end, the first thing I told you is still true.
Or it's like how we say that
But
rainbows are created by light being refracted through water when it's technically it's a different thing, right? But that's how we explain it to kids, right? And that's what I'm saying.
but like does that make Washington suddenly not the first president of the United States? It doesn't. There's just
No,
more information, but it doesn't change this.
it's but it's a thing. But what I'm trying to say here is that
But like it doesn't
when we
change
tell
that. Like it's just a like, based on our definition of like what we mean when we say that or when we make those associations don't change. We just we just add more to it. But it doesn't it can confuse that, but it doesn't actually change it. So I don't know. I think it's
but
not
the
a good example to
okay,
prove
you're right. But the point I'm trying to make is that we tell kids that doing better in school or like that working harder and learning more at school will make them more intelligent.
learning more in school will make them more intelligent. That is the bar. That is
So
it. It's how much you learn.
and the studies show that the IQ tests prove that otherwise.
Okay, but how does that prove that the IQ test can measure people's intelligences?
Now
It
you're moving the
doesn't.
goalposts.
It,
Now you're moving the goalposts.
but no, I feel like I'm not because this is the argument. Like I'm trying to confront your argument because this is what you are arguing.
It
I'm
I
trying to I'm trying to like show that if you try to fit it, it doesn't fit.
it, but it does. It does. I don't know what other method you could use to measure someone's intelligence
Well,
other than the IQ
just
test.
because you don't know doesn't mean it gives you the authority to say that this test is the definitive way of doing this.
What else would you use?
Well, I'm trying to propose that it's dangerous to do that. Like if you were to use a test that hasn't perfectly been proven to do um to like, you know, to 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 understand what you're trying to compare. It doesn't directly define it. And you're trying to make comparisons of people taking this test to come to a conclusion. But your test already doesn't do that.
The
How do
vast
you how do you use it then? How do you use it in good conscience to anyway?
Because the vast majority of the scientific community has stuck with the evidence that IQ is a good measure. It's a good estimate of intelligence.
I feel like I'm going in circles. I don't.
You're
I feel
you're
like we
saying,
talked
how
about
do I
this,
know? You're saying, how do I know? I'm saying, because the majority of studies show this. You are in the minority because the vast majority of people say, yeah, IQ is a good estimate of intelligence.
I'm
It's
I
the best estimate we
I w-
have.
I want
I feel like you
I
have a
we can't
foregone
agree on it.
conclusion.
We can't agree on that. It's a problematic thing that we can't agree that the IQ test is not the perfect way to measure a person's intelligence.
There is no perfect anything. There's no perfect theory of gravity. There's no perfect theory of natural selection. There's no perfect anything in science, but it's close enough for now.
But
And we're constantly
when
making it better.
when you say that, or when you pan it off as fact, when you when it's like not close enough, okay? It can it can have ramifications. It can it can make people's lives worse because of a predetermination that they are less, and the term is loose here, but less human than another person.
If you want to use that for eugenics, I mean, I disagree with you and the scientific community disagrees with you.
But
Like, there's a
what
line you can
but
draw.
you're trying to like prove that people are inferior to other people.
I'm trying to prove that maybe they shouldn't have as much political power as they do, or as much economic power as they do,
But
or as many economic
then
benefits as they get.
you're being selective in who you determine is more intelligent than another person, and then you've ruined uh, the point of a test to be objective in measuring someone's intelligence. How do you do that?
The IQ test is objective all we want, but if we use it for something else, then that's fine. But if you can find the raw IQ scores, or even technically you can use them after they've been uh, translate. So what they do on an IQ test nowadays for the past few decades is they take your raw scores on the test and they convert them. They do a transformation on them to get them into a normal curve, right? Where the average score is 100 and every standard deviation is 15 points, right? But the raw scores have been going up for every generation by about 3 points. This is called the Flynn effect, right? But we can take even the standardized scores and we can say, hey, states like Alabama, Mississippi, West Virginia, Rust Belt states, they are performing significantly lower on the IQ test. And we can take that IQ test and we can say, hey, how does this correlate with poverty? How does this correlate with making money? And if we say that and if we can definitively, not definitively prove, but if we can say that the vast majority of IQ differences are caused by heritability, then we can say that the majority of poverty is not based on social class, but intelligence.
Which is really messed up, I feel. I I just, you know, to imply that um people are poorer because of like s- because of something about their makeup as people is something different than people who are more successful is it's a it's just discrimination.
So the salary correlation with IQ is actually pretty strong. Um, it's not super strong. It's
But
not
but
nearly as strong as the
w-
heritability on
but
IQ.
how does that carry over to to describing that those are that because you're trying to say that they're inferior people
I'm
because
saying they
there's a
deserve less
correlation
benefits.
with how much money they make. And but like it's so much more different to say, they have fewer opportunities to good education and to more resources as a result of a higher income. It's different to say those things and to say they are inferior.
We are getting less return on investment by giving money to the southern states than we would by reinvesting it into states that make us money. If we want to balance the budget, we need to stop giving as much aid to southern states or Rust Belt states. That is a fact. The reason why we are in so much debt is
so
because we
y-
keep re re
y-
what's the word fucking commies like
you
to use
you
all
want
the
to take
time.
resources away from states with fewer resources than the states with more resources.
Yes. If we want to ever balance
How
the
can
budget,
you how can you support that? That's
because we're
such
not
a
getting a return on
selfish
investment.
but that's so selfish. Do you wonder why we don't already do that as like a policy? It's probably because it's morally questionable to, you know, have states that have like an over uh like they benefit more than they need to, and then they keep it all for themselves, and then the ones who have less, you know, who don't have all the utilities to thrive in their community get nothing.
If the US government
It's
defaults on its debt, the entire world economy will collapse and billions with a B will die. Keeping the US government and economy afloat is maybe killing thousands to save billions. And that is a trade that we have to make.
it's whoa, 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 whoa,
What
whoa.
is worse?
Whoa. That's
200,000 people dying or 2 billion?
but
2 billion with a B.
I feel like you're like harboring over a fear that it isn't our reality. We
If
don't have like I
we have
think we have
trillions of
we
dollars in
actually
credit,
have more people suffering in this country than we have in like many years. It's actually I feel like it's worse now than it could be possibly in any other hypothetical situation you're describing.
if the US government
Uh,
announced that it was insolvent and couldn't pay its debts, do you know what kind of apocalyptic economic situation that would be?
I understand the United States is in debt, but how does that carry over to their how they distribute resources across the entire country?
Because the way we distribute our resources is causing a deficit, and because we have a deficit, we keep spending money we don't have, which drives up the debt. If we want to fix the debt, we need to start cutting things that aren't giving us a return on investment, and one of those things is investing in Rust Belt communities.
I'm trying to like think of how, because I get that the debt is increasing, but like I feel like that is done out of necessity. Like how can you like I get it's like I don't know. It just I I don't know how to I don't know how to wrap my head around this in the way that you are because it's
So
it just it doesn't it's just it's so out of the I'm sorry. It's really sad. It's
it
really
it is. It's the devil's fucking arithmetic to
no, it's like
say
it's really sad to like think that or to like entertain the idea that people can be, um, less deserving of support and help because they are in a less um, prosperous or profitable or any they are less able to make their lives better or make the lives of other people better. Therefore, it's a waste to invest resources in them.
It's not. I mean, yeah, it
It's
sucks.
inhumane to do that.
Uh,
But don't you that would
Living
it's
on
so
this planet
wrong.
is not a humane thing.
But like, you but this country, even if, it might upset me that New York gives so much of, well, not, it doesn't even upset me. It's just a fact that New York, disseminates so much of its acquired wealth as a state to other states to kind of help accommodate or adjust for their um, shortcomings in, like, you know hitting their goals to succeed as an economy, right? That is what we do as a country,
Hmm.
because we have states in this country that don't have the ability to support themselves financially. That
Yes.
is its own problem.
Yeah.
But it's better that we do it than not do it at all.
I think that is a moral. I think that it comes down to a difference in morality. I think what you're describing right now is a very Kantian argument.
But that's not a state responsibility. It's a responsibility taken by, like, the body of government that's helmed at taking care of all the states, because this is the way it's done. Because this is how you make sure that you are not um, you know making the lives of people, well, it's just, there's a reason to do it, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason to, like, spread the wealth around instead of just um
Reinvesting it in the things that make you more money.
yes.
I agree. I think it's hard to not be a Kantian sometimes, right? Like you can be as utilitarian as you want and say, "Hey, I'm gonna flip that lever. I'm for the trolley to go kill that one guy instead of killing these five people," right? But it's hard. They've done studies on this. Vsauce did a video on this.
I understand it's hard because
It's hard to make
it's
the
not
choice to
it's
harm people.
it's not well, what
Like
wait
it's hard to make the choice to say I'm cutting funding to this struggling community because it is a economic sink, right? It's hard to say that because you look at the kids in that community and you say, "Sorry, I'm not giving your teachers money this year," right? Like,
I
yeah,
I think that's I don't see that as like a safe, like, space for having the discussion, because, like, a person's beliefs, and when they make that decision, are, like, something else to be accounted for, because it's like you can't just take those actions in isolation.
no, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying morality plays a huge part in it, and it physically is difficult to make that kind of choice. But
I
you
wouldn't.
you have to admit that investing in things that continue to lose money doesn't make you more money. That's a fair assumption, right?
Do you have anything else? What?
I was gonna say I was waiting for you to agree on that.
Repeat
I
it.
didn't
Repeat it.
that investing in something that is a net loss loses you money, right?
I guess in when that is the train of actions. Yeah. Okay. How does it pertain to what you're about to say?
I have another point.
What?
If I'm asked. There are two assumptions that I need you to make here, which is number one,
I don't.
investing in a bad
Why?
investment loses you money, and number two, the U.S. government can't keep losing money forever, and if they lose their money, it's bad. If
It's
we
it's
default,
just
it's bad.
that's such a like it's such a disconnected thing to say because like the United States is one of the wealthiest countries in the world.
Yeah, but we can't keep printing more dollars. We can't
But
keep.
but the country is wealthy. The country is incredibly wealthy. It is not having a problem with like a financial drought.
That's
Not at
not.
this
But
time.
that's not how the federal budget works. That's not how the budget works. The budget, the national debt is because we are spending more than we are making, so we owe money to people. A
Okay.
little bit of national debt is good, but
Okay.
if we have had to raise the debt ceiling 100 times since the 1940s, that's a bad thing.
Hmm.
Every
You got the
single
table
fucking
slams.
every single like congressional season or semester, whatever the fuck they call them, every single session of Congress, they raise the debt ceiling almost every single time, sometimes more than once.
But like I don't know like okay, they raised the debt ceiling. They're obviously spending more money, but like I don't like it. It feels like a very detached thing from like the the discussion about the investments.
Investing in these Rust Belt communities raises the deficit and thus the national debt. That's the point that I'm making. And if we were to default because our debt got too high, then that would be worse for everyone. Like those, you think those communities are struggling now. If we default on the debt, then not only will they collapse, but counties and states that actually do make money will also collapse, and
Okay,
also
well,
all of the world economies that rely on the dollar as a reserve currency will also collapse.
okay. So they won't do it then.
What is uh what do you think was like the worst economic crisis you can think of, right? You know, you're in New York. It's probably the Great Depression. You probably learned a lot about the Great Depression in
Um,
New York public school, right?
it's a
Black Tuesday.
weird assumption to make.
I mean,
Uh,
that was like the main headquarters of it, right? You know, Wall Street, Black Tuesday, that sort of thing.
it's is not it's not how the New York city public education system works. We don't just suddenly learn about the Great Depression for like in that way. I mean, we kind of learned about it, right?
Yeah,
We we learned about like simple stuff. We learned about like Hoover homes and um, you know
and people
what?
in the Weimar Republic burning their currency to stay warm. People did that
Yeah,
here too.
yeah. We it was touched on. Okay, I but I
Imagine if imagine a depression 10 times worse than that. That's what we would have if the US defaulted.
okay.
It's really
W-
bad.
Okay, I I feel like we're so far away from like what we were having a conversation about before.
So my point is, if we invest in these communities that don't pay back, we're throwing money into a hole, and it's money we can't keep spending.
See,
So we
that's a danger, that's a slippery slope right there to proclaim because that, you know, maybe it's because we've designed a system where we've chosen to invest in things that we have put so many resources in that they, have become a business. And so, the country profits off of the continuation of its existence and of its like industry and from what it's doing. But
yes,
then at the same time, in order to put such a high investment, we have diverted funds from other systems and programs and entities that were were still essential but are now completely like shriveled of all of like, you know, the the sufficient amount needed to thrive and succeed as an organization. It is like underserved, underdeveloped, um, underrepresented. It's and then that is is the image of what you are describing as a bad investment,
Yeah.
right? Yes. Okay, cool. I love that we're on
So
the same page for this. So,
what are
I
we
might
going to do to make them profitable? How
well
are they going to make a profit?
we invest money into it and
We've been
we
doing that and
and
it doesn't
resources.
work.
No, I'm saying that we still haven't.
We've been doing it a lot and we keep losing money on them.
But like, okay, let's put a f- let's put these theories to a test, right?
Okay.
Let's compare them to things in the United States,
I can
right?
actually think of one. I can actually think of a really good example of
Okay.
my point.
Something like think of something underfunded, underserved, underrepresented uh, as something that is the government's responsibility to support.
The postbellum South in the Civil War, Reconstruction. This was their complaints were like, well, all of our industry dried up, same as the Rust Belt in modern times, right? All of our industry dried up. We don't have we don't have the infrastructure in place to become these like titans of like infrastructure that the North was, right? You know, New York, Boston, Philly, Pittsburgh, they were all building shit, right? They had become industrialized. The South had not industrialized, not nearly to the point that the North had, and that's why they lost the war. But after they lost slavery, after cotton no longer became that profitable for them, what could they do? Nothing. So these communities started drying up, shriveling up, and the South became poor. They didn't have the numbers that the North had. That's why they had to seek the Three-Fifths Compromise during the Constitution, is because the North was already more popular even back in the 1780s. So,
Mhm.
in order to
Yes.
seek
Their primary I mean, we're talking about the Civil War, right?
the period after,
Yes. But we're talking about an economic decline in the South as a result of the Civil War.
uh, technically it was already sort of like declining,
Right.
but the
There
Civil
was
War
a
was a
there was a
drastic one.
there was a problem in meeting the economic standards of the South during the war.
Yes,
Yes, and there was a financial and economic decline in the South after the war.
yes,
Yes. Why do you think there might have been an economic decline in the South?
because I'm so glad you asked this,
Yeah.
because
Why?
the
And
in
I'm gonna just Civil War. I'm just gonna like I'm gonna bring it back to that. We had a war, like
on
in the whole
slavery.
country. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, the exploitation of black people in this country for free labor.
yes. So the reason why the South suffered such an economic disaster afterwards was because they had relied economically so much on the practice of slavery, which is fucking gross. It's really fucking gross. And they deserved
And
to
true.
lose. They should have burned. I think that, you know, Sherman did one thing wrong during his march to Atlanta and his march up the coast. He fucking stopped. He should have burned everything. Burned that whole fucking half of the country to nothing, to glass, right? But the reason why the South economically collapsed afterwards was because they were so invested in slavery as an institution, much like the Rust Belt communities and the Rust Belt states were so invested in the industry that they were doing. But because we took those jobs, we sent them overseas, or we said, half of these products aren't even useful anymore. Like, you know, like asbestos factories. Who fucking uses asbestos anymore? Fucking idiots. Nobody, right? So
Yeah.
they don't make asbestos anymore.
Hmm.
Uh, They don't, the radium girls, that industry is gone now, right?
Yes.
Uh, so it's like they invested in industry that they thought was going to last a long time, and they were pillars of this community. The town I live in has downsized a lot in factories, right? We used to have a lot more factories. I think we have like two now. We have like two big factories slash warehouses, and that's it, right? The largest,
Can I
those are
can I
like the,
add on? Can
yeah,
I
go
add
ahead.
on to what you're saying?
Mhm.
So you raise a really good point. There is like in, and it's not even that far. It's not even that long ago that the United States outsourced so many jobs that used to exist in this country to other countries, which has created a large drought for jobs for the average American in this country. So, in a way, laborers and workers in this country, which are essentially people, just people in this country, are being exploited by the United States, um, so that they can they can have the business or the work be done somewhere where it's cheaper, which is similar to the previous example we gave, which is slavery, which is labor that is free and is like we, I hope, all agree is exploiting and infringes on the autonomy and rights of a people and citizens of a country. Of
So
course, the conditions are not comparable, but
no,
they are they are following a similar pattern.
yes, but I will say,
Come on, man.
think so
Why do you gotta do that every time? Why do you gotta
because
always
there's more
say
nuance. There's more nuance than you're adding.
how
Uh,
could but like I feel like if you're gonna add more nuance to what I say, you have to acknowledge what I say
I
too.
agree. Working labor conditions are cheaper in other countries, but they're also worse than they would be here because there's less OSHA regulations in other places, and there's lower like minimum wage laws if they even have any. But
Okay, so you're implying that the people who are being used to exploit Americans are also being exploited.
uh, so there's an argument about that can be made because um these like warehouses, these factories and shit, they are the most lucrative employment opportunities in these areas. Like they wouldn't be lucrative
Okay,
here.
that doesn't mean that like their entire livelihood is great if that is their best form of conditions that they can be living under where they live. That doesn't
No,
mean that at all.
but the
Nah,
at
why
the
do you
end of
keep
the day,
why do you keep saying that? Like, oh, their lives, yeah, you know, everything you just said about their lives not actually being good because um
they're
the
better than they would be without it. I think that's a fair assumption to make.
why
Uh,
would you why would you assume that what exists is the best alternative to like any alternative?
if we didn't offer industrial employment opportunities in these countries, they would a lot of them would either be doing like very taxing manual labor, sometimes subsistence farming, which I think we can all agree is not good.
Okay, so we're gonna agree that the the policies and the conditions of where they live are worse than the conditions that exist for people who are citizens of the United States.
Yep.
Okay,
I would say
and
even like Native American
and
reservations
the
are probably
and the
better than Africa. Yeah.
and the United States understands this and goes to a country and you know pulls upon the labor and the the people that live in these countries and specifically use the lack of protections that exist in our country for our workers to create these jobs that
Yes.
are that are, you know, taking advantage and exploiting the lack of protections to to maintain this work, to like preserve this,
Yes,
while removing those opportunities and possibilities from the country we live in.
yes. So,
So
um,
how is that, how is like a different form of exploitation of people living in another country better than nothing
for whom?
for anyone?
Because first of all,
Oh,
we get
you know,
products cheaper
yeah, I
here.
will explain who it's better for. It's for the people who do this stuff because they are the people profiting off of this exploitation. Who else?
So the
Who
reason
else?
why, uh,
Please, please. How can you
I'm explaining
describe
it.
how can you describe this as something better for the people who are being exploited? It's so detached and unfathomable. It is
If they didn't
so
have
unbelievable.
industrial employment, would you say that that living in a post-industrial nation is better than a pre-industrial nation?
But what if like you don't, what if it's just being a slave? What if that's it? Does that mean, does like, oh, because of the economic standing of your country is different, that being a slave is better? It's not. It's being a slave. It's still a problem. Does not, it's not fixed. It's
There
not,
are
it's not
rules and
better.
regulations.
It's the same form of exploitation and being done on people. It's not like, it's not like a little bit better than this or that, or than like not going over there and, irreparably changing the like the existing conditions of a country, because we haven't improved upon anything at all. We've just
Would
used what's there
the life
to
expectancy
create
has
us.
gone up in these countries?
You know where it's gone down?
Nowhere.
The United States.
Okay, so we should force all companies to not offshore anywhere and to do all their labor here. Do you know what that would cause?
But
That's
do you,
right, another Great Depression. A board of directors.
But
Uh,
isn't that something to think about? The life expectancy of the United States has begun to gone down, and we've, like, it's not like, I'm not going to make exact correlations, but there is it in the same vein, jobs have also been outsourced to other countries from this country. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on, but this is two things that are both happening at the same time in this specific time we're living in.
it's because
Okay.
we're transitioning to a service-based economy and not a goods-based economy.
Uh,
Like
what?
the so a lot of jobs are industrial based or goods based, manufacturing based. But because they're being offshored, the amount of jobs that are growing now are service jobs. DoorDash, fucking not DoorDash, but like doing things that provide a service, right? Like hospitality, um, like accounting, that sort of thing, right? You're not creating goods anymore. You are doing services for the people who are creating goods, right? So there are still, companies that make things here, right? A lot of the weapons manufacturing happens here because things can't be imported. There's still import regulations. So here's the thing: there, the a CEO is elected by a board of directors, and he has a legal duty to do what is best for shareholders, not
No,
stakeholders,
no,
not
he doesn't.
customers.
No,
Yes, he
he does
does.
not. He does
Yes, he
not have a
does.
legal duty
Yes, he
to
does.
please his shareholders.
Yes, he does. Oh my fucking god. I'm in a business law class right now. That was literally a question on an exam I took today.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for thanks for pointing out something that seems, you know, impossibly or like it just infinitely problematic.
How?
If as a CEO, your interests are directly related to the interests of your shareholders,
Yes,
how could
short-term profits.
how might that infringe on the other values upheld by a company?
The CEO is focused on that. The
If you
government is focused
if
on everyone else.
okay,
And so companies and government will be in conflict and
if
they
you
will
care
meet
about
somewhere in the middle.
if you care about shareholders and creating as large of a profit as possible for your company, what sort of practices might you be prone to participating in order to follow those goals? Huh?
There have been
What would you do?
some there have been some court cases that say you may take into account that stakeholders, employees, long-term profits, that sort of thing. It's Unical versus Mesa was the main court case. It was decided in Delaware because all corporations are made in Delaware. Um, but your primary interest has to be of the shareholders because that's what you were elected for. That's what you're supposed to do. The government can put in rules and regulations that make you not do certain things, and that's the point. That's
Yeah, that's such a fair balance is that, other than what the government says is fine, you can abuse all the other facets in order to benefit your shareholders.
yes, and
Yikes.
it has created the world's like some may argue that the United States is the world's largest empire. I would disagree,
I would
but
agree.
no, we're not larger than the British Empire at the height of its power. That's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to use okay, if you're trying to make an argument about the largest empire in history, no, it's not going to make a compelling statement or whatever.
But we have created the largest economy, the largest industrial capacity in the entire history of the species because we've been able to do this sort of thing. Because we've
Yeah,
created this system.
what a interesting thing to think about. That this system has prioritized profits over everything else.
Because it's not the corporation's job to focus on that. That's the point. The corporation's job is to make money for the shareholders
You're
because the
right.
shareholders aren't all super rich.
You're
The
right.
shareholders are the fucking people with 401ks, the fucking
Right.
kids who get stocks for their fucking birthdays, right?
Yep. Okay, but is that all people?
The fucking vast majority are invested in the stock market. Yeah,
No, that's not true.
it is.
No.
Something
The
like
vast
40%
the
are not.
You're saying the vast majority of people.
In the United States, yes.
You're saying I feel like we could look this up now and it would
I'm
just
looking it up right now. 61% of adults in the United States have invested in the stock market. It's been
have.
steady. It used to be prior to the Great Recession. It was at 65%. 60, not 50, 61. That's a super majority. 61%. It peaked in 2007 at 65%. So 65% of Americans are shareholders. A corporation owes responsibility to its shareholders.
But how much of a person's livelihood is defined by their share?
It depends how much you have invested.
Yeah, but do you think that the people who are benefiting way more off of shares own more shares than the other people?
Probably, but I don't think it's fair to
Yes,
say.
they totally do. Do you yeah, for sure. The people who are richer have more shares than the other people who are not as rich.
But that
It's
doesn't change the fact that a corporation owes a fiduciary duty to its shareholders, and if they didn't,
But but
business would never work.
but it points out that when they do that, they are tailoring their business to a select few people. They're not doing it to all They're not doing it for all Americans. They're not even doing it to like 100% of Americans. They're doing it to 61% of Americans.
And that's where the government comes in to force them to follow the rules.
Oh, so like the government is gonna like make up for the 39% of all Americans that aren't invested in this in shares because
Yes, if
that's
it
just
weren't for the
because it's
government, there
because the
would be
government is
literally nothing but slavery. Complete chattel slavery would exist if the government didn't step in and say, no, you have to do this. You have to
so what is
provide
that
people with
what is that
employment
so
opportunities.
what does that say about the interests of a CEO to his shareholders? How is that any different?
What do you mean?
If the only thing preventing um, a shareholder or a CEO from doing anything that it can to please its shareholders, and that the only thing stopping it from, uh, you know, bypassing an action that would be, you know, irreparable, whatever. It's like like bad. Anything bad is only stopped by the government.
Yes, and it works.
Then how are those self-interests any different than the implied connotations of slavery? I mean, it's such a stretch. Like I don't like comparing these things, but it's you know that is it is kind of the root of your argument is that like the the rights and protections of the people who work in a company are not as respected, protected. They're not as valued to the leader as the entity of shareholders.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
And then
And
the
the only
government
and the
makes them care. It, it's
uh-huh.
it's it's a
You act
it's a
like it's
system that
you
works. You
you
act
act
like
like it
we're
works. You act like
It
it works.
does. There's been less people under the poverty line than any other time in history. Industrialization and corporatization is raising the life expectancy worldwide so fucking far. Like, it's insane. Some of these countries, prior to globalization, had lifespans in the 30s. And now they're going up to the 50s and the 60s and the 70s.
But like
You can't
well,
argue with the results.
well, can we also acknowledge that like the people you're evaluating do not represent they still don't represent everyone in this country.
No, I'm talking about worldwide, the people who are worse off than the people in this country. But also, the vast majority of people in this country are better off under this globalization and this corporatization.
There's the the only thing that's being globalized is uh jobs overseas.
Which
And
gives people American money to spend in their countries that desperately want American money. American currency is
what?
so valuable.
What? You think funneling jobs overseas is giving people in America more money?
No, it's giving people in the rest of the world more money. Are you saying that we shouldn't help the rest of the world? Because you keep talking about how all these people in these other countries, all these refugees, all these asylum seekers, their lives are so horrible, so terrible.
But
But
the
without us, they would be subsistence fucking farmers.
Okay, I can see you're very angry about this.
Because this is this fucking TikTokization of fucking economics. The fucking So I'm gonna disprove the fucking Flynn effect. We are losing IQ points recently, and it's because of fucking TikTok. It's not because of long COVID. It's not because of fucking
Whoa.
COVID brain fog. It's because of fucking TikTok.
When did we get to the we're losing IQ points because of TikTok talk? Where is this coming from?
Because you're saying all these
What?
things that are
You're saying
very
all these things.
misinformed.
You, you
You are so
listen
woefully
to
misinformed
yourself.
on
What
things.
did you just say? We are losing IQ points because of TikTok.
Yes, TikTok is blatantly promoting misinformation in their algorithm on purpose.
Okay, that is a
And
that is a different that's a different thing to say. That's like
it is
this.
reducing our critical thinking skills.
Okay, but a problem with misinformation in TikTok is a different discussion than we are losing IQ points because of TikTok.
It is reducing our critical thinking ability, which is one of the main things measured by the intelligence quotient test. The
Uh,
misinformation, it's a thing. Why do you think that the American government is trying so hard to ban it? Do you know who
I
owns TikTok?
I'm not as informed. I know it's a Chinese owned corporation. Okay, I get it. I understand.
Yes.
But you know, and if there's a problem with misinformation, that's an important discussion.
Yes.
But I'm not informed enough to talk about the what is going on in the United States uh, about the ban on TikTok. I don't know enough to talk about it.
So senators and congresspeople generally know more than the average person. Like,
Yeah,
no, no,
yeah.
no.
You know
Like, not why? Like
It's
intelligence
because
wise,
it's
like
because
confidential wise,
do you
classification
know,
wise.
do you know why? It's because they're they're the people with like college educations, right?
No, I'm talking like they know more like specific like classified information. They know what like the NSA is doing, for example, right?
Okay, that's like saying that you are responsible for ruling the country.
But what I'm saying is the NSA
What is
and the
the like
CIA are
what is the
investigating TikTok.
what is the depth of this?
So the reason why they're trying to ban TikTok is probably because the NSA and the CIA and the FBI have been investigating TikTok, and they've been like looking into the data, and they've told the Congress, the current members of Congress, hey, they're doing some shit here. Like they are purposely spreading misinformation among the American populace to destabilize us. Like a lot of it. A lot of the Israel Palestine stuff has been misinformation boosted in the algorithm by Chinese operators. TikTok is a national security threat. And I hate that I have to give ByteDance and the Chinese government and Winnie the fucking Pooh the credit to say that, but it's true. TikTok is the most successful psychological operation in the fucking world. It
Uh,
has made
I I like it's a powerful social media engine, but I don't see that being like a way to like it's a whole platform, right? There's so many people that use this for different reasons.
but the owners control the so you know how like YouTube has an algorithm, right? And they can change it. They
Yeah,
can
but it's also made up of the people who produce things and puts things on on the platform.
yes, but the things that will get caught up in the algorithm and be recommended to people are more likely to be misinformation
But
because it destabilizes the population.
why are we like I don't like this seems like such a strange fixation to have now because for the past like I would say in the years of 2016 to 2020 we had a giant misinformation problem on a platform that was run in the United States and it was a problem. It
Yes.
was a giant problem. We had a giant problem with misinformation in the United States reaching a broad audience that was not being properly addressed and counteracted and corrected?
So because of that, uh, the
Because
main
of
reason
that,
that
a, a, a change was made 4 years after the most alarming emergence, or like, as soon as the problem became in the public sphere. For 4 years it was not addressed.
yeah. So what
And
I'm
it
saying,
continued to exist in the domain of the United States for years. And it was
yeah,
all about, it was a giant.
yeah, Facebook, yeah, the misinformation on Facebook, yes.
Okay.
So
Okay. But I'm also like referring to, you know, politicians that may have conspired in misinformation and promoting it on social media platforms and not
yes,
being promptly, you know, reprimanded for those actions. It
yes.
wasn't done.
So what
So
I'm
there's
saying
so
is,
there's like a disconnect in like it across the spectrum. It's selective, you know? Like, yeah, it's a problem, but we are like choosing where we focus our resources on addressing the problems based on when it is you know uh, opinion to be an issue, but it doesn't diminish from how it is already an issue, and it wasn't being asserted or you know uh, addressed, I guess. you know
it
there's
wasn't
it's
addressed then, but we took Mark Zuckerberg to Congress. He had to go to multiple hearings in Congress. But here's the difference between 2016 and from 2018 onwards. In 2016, Facebook was doing it for profit, right? They were like, oh, both sides are on it. Both sides are doing ad revenue. Both sides are making us money. Twitter, same deal. Jack Dorsey didn't ban Trump's Twitter account. Same reason, right? But
So there was a financial incentive which involves some form of exploitation to gain more money,
it's
right?
American companies not putting their thumbs on the scale and letting both sides play it out versus a hostile foreign power directly controlling the misinformation.
But like, you understand that y- like the actions of people inside the country are still destructive
Yes, but
towards
I'm
its
saying that
people.
TikTok is going to be more destructive.
But I'm trying to like point out that this problem already exists in our own country.
It does, yes, but the other platform, the TikTok
But
platform,
why say but? Let's just like focus on that. Let's
okay,
just focus on how it already exists in our country, please.
sure, and TikTok is doing it worse, so that should be our first priority to fix.
Right.
If there's a
Because
small forest fire in uh in Central Park, right? That's pretty bad. Central Park's on fucking fire. That's terrible.
yeah, yeah, I live near that park.
But if the
So so
entire
the park
redwoods if the
so
entire
that
redwood
that
national forest lit on
that
fire,
well, but that being a problem is concerning in its own way.
which one should we put out first? I don't care if the Central Park happened first. We should be fixing the bigger problem first. Okay? And now Facebook has already taken steps to address it.
Well,
They
when
have the fact checking
when
thing.
we have that attitude, we never fix anything.
We passed a bill that said if ByteDance and the Chinese government don't release their control of TikTok, they cannot operate in America anymore. So we did do something. Congress passed that. There was very few holdouts on either side. It is a thing that we are doing.
Okay, but I want to continue to emphasize that those practices in our own country are not being punished.
They were. We put a bunch
Yo,
of
we
fines
had
on
a
the Facebook
we had a
company.
we had a hearing with Mark Zuckerberg.
We put a
So
bunch of
therefore
fines on them.
therefore the justice system works because we had that hearing. So we like are aware of it being an issue, so we no longer have to regard it as an issue. Is that what you're saying?
There's
Is that
less problems with it now because we put a fine on them and they've started actually moderating their platforms. Not very well, you know. There's still a
not
lot of
well at
spam
all?
bots. It's
Not well at
better
all.
than they were doing before, and
But
it's better than fucking Elon is doing on fucking Twitter.
that's the reality. That's what's happening now.
Elon, Twitter and TikTok especially, but also Twitter, because Elon, I believe, is a Russian state asset. I believe he has been turned. I believe he has been converted by Putin.
But he is also, you know, engaging in this
Yes,
in the United States.
but TikTok is being directly controlled by the Chinese government. At least there's a middleman in the case of Twitter. We should step into Twitter. I think Elon Musk should be fucking given the whole treason treatment because he is absolutely aiding and abetting the Russians, and he should be sentenced to the maximum punishment for that. Right? He should be found uh, uh, absolutely guilty for that. If I was on the jury, which I know I will never be, but if I was on the jury for that, he would be guilty, guilty, guilty. That son of a bitch is guilty. But TikTok is doing it worse because there are more users of TikTok and it is being directly controlled by Xi Jin motherfucking Winnie the Pooh Ping. And that is more dangerous.
Well, I hope you you know,
And so what I'm
take care, you know, just just try and like assess the fear that you have and, you
it's not
know,
fair.
digest it. But you said it's scarier.
I mean, like scarier as in like more dangerous. I'm not scared of fucking Winnie the Pooh. He's a fucking retard. Xi Jinping is the one of the dumbest world leaders.
Okay, it's scarier.
For
Okay.
you, I don't find it
For
particularly scary, but
me,
it's dangerous. I'm a
okay, but
fucking cis male white. I'm a cis white male. If Trump gets back into office because TikTok wants him there, because China wants him there,
so
then
now you're gonna use your positionality to explain why this is not as big of a problem for you as it might be for someone else.
I'm doing my part. I'm fighting
How could you?
misinformation.
What?
I'm voting for the right fucking person. But you're getting a lot. My original point was that you're getting a lot of your news from TikTok, or you're getting your news from people who got it from TikTok.
What? What? You're gonna chalk up everything I've talked about here to TikTok?
No, I'm
You're not
saying
gonna
a
like.
lot of the shit that you've gotten from is from TikTok
Why are you blaming TikTok for what I have to say?
because the shit that you get wrong is often said on TikTok, and it is blatant misinformation because the TikTok algorithm has an
What?
anti-American and specifically anti-Joe Biden bias.
Well, just because I'm criticizing the United States doesn't mean I'm wrong.
No, but a lot of the information you've been using is wrong. Like, remember what you said when I said like uh, the the CEO owes like a legal financial fiduciary duty to the shareholders, and you were like, no, they don't. No, they don't. And I was like, yes, they do. There's been multiple court cases about
Okay,
this.
but you can't just say that's TikTok's fault because like I didn't get that from TikTok. But like the fact that you implied that I did is like what? Why would you do that?
I'm saying that when you get your news from certain places and you don't review it with certain other sources, if you're getting it from social
I'm sh-
media,
I'm not gonna say that I'm perfect, but I'm not gonna also say that like, this is how I've been digesting my information.
but
Why are you
you
why
use
are you
TikTok, right?
No.
Do you know people who do? Like your girlfriend, does she use TikTok?
No.
Do some of your friends use TikTok? Do some of
I
the
don't
people you follow on social media use TikTok?
I don't know, but
And that's the
I'm not
thing.
as immersed in TikTok. No, I'm not gonna like draw connotations on something that I am not being like I'm not in relation to. That's conspiracy.
My point is that it's spreading with young people. So if you are talking to young people and they're like, hey, did you know blah, 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 and you're not reviewing these things, they might have gotten it from TikTok, which has a vested interest in giving misinformation that makes the US look bad.
Okay, but
And
like
that's what I'm saying.
you're making all of these points, but they have like zero relevance to our conversation because none of what I've talked about has had like anything to do with TikTok. So why have you kept bringing up TikTok?
Because
I
some
get it.
of the stats that you're getting
I
and
get
some
that the
of the.
government is talking about it, but like it has no bearing on our argument. And you using it to diminish my points is absurd. It feels like it defeats any of my credibility as like someone trying to make points. If you're gonna say that, oh, because I'm not even doing that to you. I you know I'm not saying that, oh, everything you say is fake because of like this one platform that exists that has like probably nothing to do with how you're getting your information. I'm not doing that to you.
What I'm trying to say is that when you're getting when you're talking with young people or older people too, because everybody's using TikTok now, right? A lot of people are getting headlines, and this happens on Twitter too, especially with fucking Elon now.
The thing is
It
like
happens on Twitter as well.
like I'm not on I'm sorry if I like don't have a way to speak about this, but I'm not on either platform. So
No,
I'm not
I'm saying Instagram gets it from TikTok. Instagram gets it from Twitter, and I know you're on Instagram.
okay, so you think that
There's
I am
more middlemen
constantly
in between.
you think I'm constantly subjected to misinformation.
Yes.
Okay. Um
Less so
that's
than a constant TikTok user, but I know that there is quite a bit of misinformation reaching you.
I just like I just I want to know what you classify as misinformation
The
because
biggest example I can think of off the top of my head that you've like been posting about a lot has been the a lot of the Israel Palestine stuff has been very uh the Hamas government will release the numbers and people on TikTok will use them, and then that will go to other social media and people will say, "Oh, we saw it on TikTok, right?" A lot of people aren't independently reviewing these things, and
do you
so they're
know do you
taking.
know why there's such a difficulty in getting information from that region?
Yes, because Israel cut off their fucking internet. But that doesn't mean you take the fucking words of Hamas
Do you
at
know what's
face
another
value.
well, you've left out of something else that's very crucial about what's going on is that there have been more reporters killed in this conflict than like any other conflict you could list to date. So
That's a
the
really big
importance
TikTok thing.
but okay, so you're gonna just flat out deny what I'm saying.
How many reporters died in Syria thus far? 715. How many journalists have died in Israel? Or sorry, Gaza. Just to slow it down. So
What is it?
95 compared to 715. And the Syrian war numbers make these numbers look like like a small skirmish. The numbers in Syria in like the first few months dwarf these numbers in like by factors of huge factors,
So
right?
you're so I'm trying to like let's try and find a common ground here.
I think you are getting misinformation about Palestine from people who got it from TikTok, from people who got it from Hamas. And I'm
Okay.
saying
That's a
If
lot of like, you know, connecting.
you are not the most violently pro-Palestine person I've know, which means that you've
But
probably had a
but
lot of the bad stuff
you're drawing
filtered
so
out.
many connections off of things that are are being associated solely out of your own conjecture.
Because I know where these numbers are coming from. Like I've seen some of the numbers you've
You can't
posted and
just
some of the
you can't
stories you've
just
posted.
you can't just fucking know it. You have to you have to actively like be looking for the information. You
I
don't
have
just
been.
know it. You,
I have been very, very invested in this conflict this whole time. Since October fucking 7th. I have been very invested in this conflict.
I just I'm I'm just trying to like I just,
And I've been following the numbers from both sides. And even the neutral parties in this war have been saying that Hamas has been lying more. Because they're a terrorist group. You can't expect terrorists to not lie. Are you gonna ask fucking
so
Al Qaeda?
you're gonna expect the government to not lie.
I would rather expect a democratically elected government
You're
with
so
pretty good
naive,
civil
man.
rights.
How can you?
All right,
So you
that or Hamas. Again, Hamas is the alternative. When was the
what
last
about?
time Hamas had an election?
But the argument is not about the terrorist group. It's about the entire country.
Hamas is lying to you to get you on their side.
It is an entire country that is being attacked. It is an entire population of people.
So if Palestine has
Why
their internet
do
cut
you
off,
do you assume that the the entire population of people in that country are complicit in terrorism? Is
no.
that you?
But fucking when you're fighting a guerrilla opponent, they will
Guerrilla?
use yes, guerrilla.
You mean guerrilla?
No, it's gorilla. Guerilla. There's no second I.
Oh,
It's
my
gorilla.
bad.
Uh, in
My bad.
Spanish, it would probably
Stay
be
informed.
guerrilla because the two L's. But no, when you're fighting a guerrilla opponent,
Hmm.
they will use civilians as human shields. Al Qaeda did this. The Irish Republicans did this. The Sons of Liberty did this.
But I want to. I feel like this is going farther away of like.
But so I'm just giving an example of
Okay, but like I don't see how like 40,000 people are are being organized as a human shield by a terror organization.
they don't
That
have to be organized into it.
well,
They
but the
launch rockets in civilian areas. And so when Israel fires a rocket back that hits the rocket site, there's usually a pretty large explosion and some shrapnel goes places. Like they launch these sites, they shoot and scoot a lot of the time. So if Israel fires a rocket back at that site, sometimes Hamas won't be there. Sometimes they will actually organize people to move into that area, and then they can use that as propaganda. For every civilian
I'm
that dies,
I'm very
Hamas wins a political victory. So would they not have an incentive to kill more people?
I'm just I'm
This was a point about misinformation because you are misinformed about some things.
you can't please I really
America is not as bad as you are being
oh
led to
man.
believe. You and other young people are
That's a
being led to believe.
no, Kale. You have been fully socially indoctrinated and it like
Use
you have
Occam's razor.
put you've put yourself as into the system. You have just like plugged yourself in.
Use Occam's razor. What is the more simple answer? That that millions
Why do
of
you want the simple answer?
that's a
The world is more complicated than this.
because the basic logic of the world is that if you don't know the truth,
Also,
and you have
like,
two options,
also, how would you critique my like
pick the option
post?
that has the
Like you
least amount
you
of
keep,
assumptions.
but like you kept like going, oh, your information is bad because it comes from TikTok and because people are getting their information from
No, your
TikTok.
information is bad and it came from TikTok.
But like it's such a I like you really think that like all these entities that are like the most respected and trusted to provide these um, critical accounts of information, these these numbers, you think that they're going to TikTok to get these numbers to publish on their own platforms?
No, they're getting
Do
them
you?
from Hamas. The young people
Oh,
aren't
they're
reading them
not.
from these official sources.
Oh, they're getting them from Hamas, and
Yes,
and
Hamas has official social media accounts, dude.
okay, but like, but 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 it's come on, man,
They
come on,
pay money to
come on.
people on Twitter to spread their propaganda.
It's not people. It's like world study organizations that are trying to document this conflict. It's not TikTok. I
The
mean, it might
numbers that are being
partially
cited
be.
by normal people
What
are
about
Hamas numbers.
but what about like
The
not just
UNRWA
people?
is a Hamas fucking plant. They found
The UN
tunnels.
is a Hamas plant.
No,
Did you?
UNRWA. UNRWA. It's a different thing. UNRWA is different.
This is the whoa. Where are we going? Where are we going? Why are we going down this way? What is happening?
Some
Why?
of these
Why
organizations
is why?
have people in Palestine that are being agents of Hamas. The UNRWA in the headquarters of the UNRWA in Gaza had Hamas base underneath it. I don't know what to tell you. They're working with them. A lot of the money that comes from UNRWA goes to arming Hamas. So
But
you
you keep
can't take a lot of these
but
agencies
but
seriously.
our arguments are not about the terror organization. It's not. We're not defending the terror organization. We're defending the people living in that space.
The best way for Palestine to be
Can
safe,
you understand? It's a whole population. There is
the
there is it is run by a terror group, right?
yes,
But underneath that terror group is a city of people, of children, of families, of a culture that has been like, you know, been continually uh in like, you know, overstepped and attacked by larger bodies surrounding it. And they have been continually compressed and dehumanized for decades.
if they want
It
a
is a
path
it is
to
an
peace, it is
but
not
they've
through violence against Israel
but
because
you
they
have to
will
understand
lose.
that they have been living under these conditions for decades. This is not like a new emergence of a terror group. This is the product of years and years of discrimination, of targeting, of confining people within borders. Uh, you know,
Forcing the Jews out 2,000 years ago. If you want to go back that far, sure.
you want to go back 2,000 years
Yeah, to the
to to
rule of
justify the conflict.
to the rule of what was it,
You
Justinian?
want to you want to justify the deaths of thousands of people to a conflict that happened 2,000 years ago.
Because it still has impacts to this day. That's so the Jews were mass exodus from Israel under the rule of the Romans. There was a war. There was a massive war between the people of Judea,
You know,
aka
I
Israel.
think I think it might it might serve as a way of understanding how the conflict has become so severe that, like, you know, people such as yourself still focus on this historical event as a
The
means
people of
of judging
Palestine keep focusing
all
on
the people.
1947. The people of Palestine keep bringing it back to saying, oh, the foundation of Israel is the fucking foundational crime. From the river to the sea, we're going to drown all the fucking Israelis in the Mediterranean. That's what that cry is, by the way. From the river to the sea. It's about fucking driving them into the sea. It's about genocide. The original
It is about genocide, but like you don't seem to fully understand it.
the original Palestinian nationalists worked with Hitler to kill the Jews. They kept sending. This was when the Nazis were doing the practice of
Do
deportation
you
rather than
do you
extermination.
think what do you think that the whole population now shares, a responsibility, or like are tied to that conflict?
No, they by the vast majority of the people who are asked support Hamas. Like it's like we like to keep saying that, like, oh, these poor people are innocent, they keep getting caught in the crossfire between
Well, why
Hamas and
do you
Israel, but they
do you
support Hamas.
do you think they're going to support Israel?
If they were smart, they would. If
You
they
think
released the hostages, Israel would stop shooting fucking missiles at them, because they still haven't released the hostages. Every time they get a ceasefire deal with fucking Hamas, and that says, "Hey, release the hostages, we'll stop shooting missiles at you,"
I
Hamas
I feel like
rejects it.
I feel like you're not like critically observing these two entities in the conflict under the same lens. You're like,
Israel isn't rejecting the ceasefires. They want their fucking civilians back.
well, how could you say that they're not rejecting the ceasefires? Where do you get that information from?
Because I've been watching, because Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken make the ceasefire details public every time. You can fucking read them, and you can see that Hamas keeps rejecting them. It's public knowledge.
Okay, bro. I think we need to
This
slow
is
the whole argument.
very
We've come to a crash. It has become we have entered we have reached the destruction of
yes. Can I just ask
whatever
one
we're
question
saying.
for you, and we'll end and we'll go to the big red button?
Ask away.
Can you look at sources, or when you get a message is very anti-America, uh, or anti-Israel, if you want, anti-Europe, anti-whatever, and like pro, like some other country, or pro like something else, right? Can you look at them with a little bit of objectivity, or maybe like just independently review them with some other sources, rather than just like doing that? Because I'll admit, whenever I
Why
read
are
a
you
headline, I
why are
often
you
don't read
like
it.
why are you implying that I don't try to look at things objectively? I
Because some of the things you've said in this episode were a little misinformed, and so I would challenge you.
I would I do not appreciate having my arguments be framed as misinformed because you don't agree with them.
No, some of the factual information you've provided was wrong.
Okay, and you have tried to correct me on them, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. But aside from things I've shared, I don't think what I have shared is distant from the reality of our world. It is very much something, and some of the things I say are just things you say. And I'm just trying to understand the argument you are trying to make, because it just they don't
Let me
it
summarize
doesn't.
all of the arguments I've made. thus far.
No, please don't. I get it. We've gone through them. We could be here all day if we just kept running through it.
No more arguments.
I'm gonna try to be objective.
Yes. Understand that
I'm
America is
trying to
not fully
I'm
bad.
trying to consider. Okay, the America is not fully bad. I accept this. I accept it's not fully good either.
Yeah. But it's better than you give it credit for.
But now you are being subjective by, by doing that. I mean, like, yeah, I just I'm s- I've s- I'm disillusioned by the belief that um, you know, every every single action that the United States acts on is done with the intention of benefiting everyone in the country.
Oh,
Because
nobody
it
ever said that. Nobody
well,
ever said that.
okay,
But
fine. But it needs to be analyzed critically. It cannot be accepted because if it is, we will we will see the things that they have put out as invisible. The things that they render invisible will be invisible to us
the
because they
fact
they
that we are
decided.
not arrested for having this podcast where we do criticize the government is proof that America is pretty fucking good. Because even people in Britain were getting arrested for like criticizing the Queen and shit like that. Like that was happening, right? So we have more freedom of speech than any other country, and I think that's just that is fucking amazing. And I think it helps to just take a step back and realize, wait, I'm saying all this shit, but like I've never had to fear for my own safety because I'm saying it, right? Like, or at least not from the
Because
government.
from a mix of, you know, well, yeah, I cannot get into it anymore. I
Yeah.
really can't.
Big red button time. Are you ready?
Yes, do it.
Um, you have to speak at one of those panels, but I'm the only person in the audience, and you have to answer every one of my questions. Have to.
Sure. Yeah, I would press that button.
For 4 hours in a row.
What? For 4 hours?
How long were your panels?
They were an hour and a half or two
Okay,
hours.
imagine you have to do a panel every day for like a week, and I'm at every single one, and you have to answer every single one of my questions.
Yeah, I pressed that button.
All right, fair enough. I
Cause
wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
yeah, why? Because you don't want to answer your own questions?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you should think about that and start
Sometimes,
start answering your questions
you gotta,
because
you know,
you might find out more than what you think you know.
I'll end the episode with this because it is getting fairly long. We need to work on the fact that these episodes are 2.5 hours long. But I'll end on the fact that uh sometimes, of course I talk to myself because sometimes you want to talk to the realest person you know, right? But sometimes it's a little too real. Sometimes it's a little too real, right? Sometimes you can't take the heat. And sometimes the heat that you can't take was from the fire that you set. And I think that's a very brilliant metaphor. Um, and
Sometimes you can't take the heat. I mean, I guess, yeah, I've been tired out from this argument because I seem to get nowhere with you on anything I talk about, which is really upsetting because, you know, I'm not, it doesn't seem like I try to talk about this with the hopes that, you know, you'll you'll think about what I'm sharing and you'll compare it with what you already know and, you know, try to pin them against each other and see them both in an equal light. And then maybe you might pick up some things from what I have to share and then add them to yours. And, I want to open up to hear what you also have to share. But I feel like when, something you share should be, opened up more and, delved in and, discussed. Like I do it with, I don't know. I I just I the only reasons I go against what you say is because I I think there's a more interesting discussion to have than to just settle with what you've shared,
Yeah,
because there's more to your opinion, or of those ideas than just what they are. They're also kind of layered on top of um, how we develop and how we've like come to our beliefs,
yeah.
right?
It's the main
So
reason why I'm so passionate about this is because all fucking day I am on Twitter on my secret personal private burner account that is anonymous. All
you're on
day
Twitter. You're on
I'm
Twitter
reading this
all the
shit.
time.
Yeah, I quit using the fucking podcast account on Twitter.
That sounds
I
like
personally use it all the fucking time.
I would just try to be careful where you're getting your information.
That's true. Elon's fucking moderation team sucks. But the
He
community
is,
notes thing is pretty cool.
but
Community notes
his
thing is pretty
his
cool.
algorithm and systems are what control the the information that comes to you.
That's true. That's true. But
So something to think of. No, don't butt it. Don't butt it. It's true. Every single time you pick up your phone and you look at Twitter or whatever social media app you look at, what you see is determined based on an algorithm created by the people who organize the app.
yeah,
That is the
all my
that
a lot
but
of my
that
feed
is
is crap. A lot of
that
my
is
feed is absolute bullshit.
okay. But this is all right, I don't know how to unpack that. But like, that is the way information gets presented to you. So it has this framework. And it's important to understand that the information as it comes to you is not explicitly of your own choice. It
No,
is selectively being presented to you.
that's correct. Can
And
I
so
offer a counterpoint?
what is a counterpoint to that? It's
A lot of the people who that I built my following around, I did that when Jack was still head of Twitter before Elon took over. So like a lot of the communities that I'm in, I found when the algorithm wasn't quite so bad. It was still bad, but it's not like it's really fucking bad under Elon. It's so racist. Oh my god. The racism. The racism on Twitter is insane. Do not use it. It's so bad.
that's
Racism.
really sad to hear.
It's so dude, it's disgusting. Some of the shit people say on Twitter. Some of the shit Elon fucking reposts and quote
Yeah,
tweets. It's disgusting. That's why I think that Elon is a fucking Russian puppet, because only a fascist racist bastard would repost some of the shit, right? And it's disgusting. And
I'm
yeah,
I'm I'm glad you shared that.
yeah. And the main difference I find between Twitter and TikTok is with Twitter, the misinformation is much more obvious because it's just obviously racist. On Twitter, it's the difference between a Russian bot and a Chinese bot, right? Fucking Russian bots have the IQ of a goddamn hammer, right? And they just say, racist shit, fuck Zelensky, Putin number one. It's obvious. It's just, blatant racism all the time. But on TikTok, it's shit that sounds true. It's two different kinds of psyop. You know, Russia's the hammer and China is the scalpel, but they're still getting into your skull either way. But I just find that Twitter is more obviously retarded. It's I would say more and less insidious at the same time, right?
Um,
Like it's more obviously evil, but like the fact that TikTok is more effective might make it more evil. I don't know. It's up to you.
yeah, I don't really know what to make of it.
Yeah, I don't know. But
Because
anywho,
I'm not on either platform.
I
So
think we should shout out our social media. Um, uh, Threads, YouTube, uh, Instagram. We don't really use Blue Sky. I kind of want to give up on Blue Sky, but I don't know. I don't know. It's just such a small platform, but I don't know. Maybe we'll try it again. I don't know. But on Threads, Instagram, and YouTube, we are at IIHS Podcast, all one word. We are also IIHS Podcast, all one word, on Patreon. Patreon.com/IIHS Podcast, where we are supported by Justin Connor. Thank you very much, Justin. So many months of your support. We really appreciate it. Keeps the lights on, keeps us talking for fucking 2 hours and 30 minutes about random bullshit. And it keeps me from not watching the Fallout show, which I'm going to maybe do at some point. It's very busy with school. The school is very busy. But uh yeah. Yeah, thank you very much for your support. If you want a cool shout out like that, head on over patreon.com/IIHS podcast. If you want an even cooler shout out, we have a second tier other than the $3 tier. We have a $5 tier called Influential and Successful. Head on over there, join that tier. You get early access to all these episodes ad free, as opposed to just the first part. Which is you're missing most of it. You're usually missing most of the content if you just get that. So definitely subscribe to the $5 tier. We also have movie commentaries, and I think eventually we're gonna watch a movie at some point. Maybe, I don't know. I have more time. Eventually, definitely we're gonna watch some this summer. But other than that, I don't have anything further to say.
then play us out.
Let's play us out. Fuck it, we'll do it live. Points to anyone who gets that reference. My name is Kael. I've been incredibly influential,
And my name is Maxwell, and I've been highly successful.
and we'll talk to you guys next week with hopefully a shorter episode because these require a little bit more work. I hate this. Goodbye. We love you. Goodbye. You should thank me for all the work I do for you. Goodbye.